On Saturday, November 2nd, 2004, the Louisiana Center for the Book in the State Library of Louisiana held the 20th Annual Louisiana Book Festival. Melissa M. Martin and Elizabeth M. Williams were two of the more than 230 authors, poets, and scholars who presented at the event. Melissa M. Martin grew up on the Louisiana coast and has lived in New Orleans for over 25 years. Her first book, MOSQUITO SUPPER CLUB, was named a Best New Cookbook by Bon Appetit, Food and Wine, NPR, The Splendid Table, Eater, and Epicurious, among others. In 2022, Martin was given the James Beard Award for writing the best book in U.S. foodways, and the IACP named it the Cookbook of the Year and Best American Cookbook. Elizabeth M. Williams is the founder of the Southern Food and Beverage Museum in New Orleans, now part of the larger National Food and Beverage Foundation. She has a weekly podcast, Tip of the Tongue, about food, drink, and culture. She is the author of many books and articles about foodways in New Orleans and the South. Here now is Melissa Martin and Elizabeth Williams.
So I have a copy of the book, which she doesn't seem to have.
Or my telephone, so.
I'm going to show it to you.
Thank you.
So this is the book.
I might use it too.
Oh, well then I'll move it so that you can have access to it.
Do you guys have it?
So how many of you already have MOSQUITO Supper Club? Okay, so you got fans in the audience.
Thank you.
So Melissa,
Yep.
what made you decide that it was time to write another book?
Well, I felt like there was so much stuff I wanted to say in the first book that didn't get printed. And so, you know, they're like, you write 20, 25 stories and only so many of them make it into the book. And even the same with this one, there's so many stories that don't make it into the book. But so I felt like there was still a lot more that I wanted to say about my Cajun upbringing and being Cajun.
And so one of the things you talk about in the description of the book is that these are really family recipes and things that your mother cooked.
Mm-hmm.
So why did you feel that this was something that everybody needed to know about?
I think everybody needs like really basic recipes that work to use and then to also make their own. And so I wanted to keep that thread from the first book and adjusting recipes and making them home friendly and telling the story that went with each recipe and sort of what feels right cooking through a year in South Louisiana.
So speaking of cooking through a year, you have a subtitle of the book, Feasting Through the Seasons of a Cajun Life. So what makes Cajun life different from anybody else's life?
Well, first with the subtitle, of course, like I grew up down the bayou and I grew up Catholic. So through the book is this thread of things that were the word feasting, you know, Feast of the Assumption. All these things that really mark a year if you grow up Catholic because your schedule of the year and the way you mark things is different from other people. So there's that part, and I'm not saying that all Cajuns are Catholic, but I thought that it was important to weave that through because it was so much a part of my childhood and still is so much part of my mother's life and my aunt's lives and people that have gone. But when I use the word Cajun, I'm very specific that this is my version of Cajun, that there are many different versions of Cajun, but the way I grew up in a fishing village on the bayou in Chauvin and in Cocodrie, Louisiana, that this is my experience of ingredients, this is my experience of recipes, and this is my experience learning food from all the women that were around me.
So when you use the word Cajun, are you talking about the geography? Are you talking about your personal genetic heritage? What are you talking about?
I think all of it. So there's the geography, there's the fishing village, there's the proximity to this working life in seafood. And then there is just this feeling inside of you, this sort of feeling of being part of a group and being part of a culture and being part of these traditions. And then there's also the other pieces of learning where you come from and what that looks like worldly. So how did all these things get here? I was thinking this morning, you know, we are all immigrants unless we are American Indians, or, you know, we are from like South Texas and North Mexico. You know, these are the people that were here hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So we are all immigrants. So where do the threads come from? And so sort of understanding that, and then understanding how people get grouped together and what title it's given, and sort of what does that mean? You know, is it religion? Is it food? Is it traditions? And then, you know, how do you sort of form that group?
So let's talk about genetic heritage then.
Okay.
Tell us your Cajun heritage.
So the Marie family, which was sort of my large side of the family, came from Corsica, and so we have tracked them back there, and there's still an address that we can go to Corsica and go to. Although my great-great-grandfather died in Paris, and I think that we, talking to my husband, we were like, oh, he probably died during the war. But still there were ancestors there. And then the Martin side of the family came through Acadie and over some of them, and then some of them came straight from France. And the Martins were from South France.
Okay.
And I don't think we have an address on that. We had an amazing genealogy book that flooded. So,
Yeah.
so I've been trying to find to see if anyone else has it somewhere, because someone did a lot of research and put it into it. But it's the Martin side of my family is very small, so I'm not related to any Martins, although I'm related to all the Maries and the LeBlancs and the Neils.
So do you feel that you're defining yourself as Cajun is important?
I guess yes. I think that when I started traveling and cooking outside of Louisiana and spending time in California or wherever I was, I think I really started understanding what Paul Bertoli said in his book, is that there is something about being born into a tradition and culture and being able to conjure that up. And there's only so many people that can, as Patience Gray says, you know, be that peasant queen. Like, really, the food is inside of you, and someone from New York can come down and learn how to do Cajun food and do it really well, but they're never going to know the feeling of tasting something at a stove from your mother, from your grandparents, from your aunts, from your mama, from all these people, which to me, that is real, you know, that's real. And so that is what I identify with. I identify with these women, this food that these women brought forth from the seafood that was brought into their kitchens, and that thread is what I identify with.
So I'm half Sicilian, and
Yum.
definitely identify that part of my life as important. And a lot of it is related to food and eating and cooking. But I also see in my own family, with my own children, that there's a lot of kind of getting more Americanized without that identity. Do you feel that that's happening in the Cajun world?
Absolutely. I mean, my community is shrinking and shrinking, from climate change, from people not wanting to be fishermen because it's so hard, from people just like going away. I mean, my mother had 6 children. None of us lived down the bayou. I mean, my parents still live in the house. They've been living it for 56 years, but all the schools after Ida have closed down. My elementary school has been razed, you know, and so the opportunity to that specific culture, that sort of these fishing villages, the opportunity to keep populating it and sort of revitalize it is being cut off, you know. I mean, already since Hurricane Ida, people had to move because their children couldn't go to the school that, you know, I went to and my whole family went to. And the option then is to drive your kids to school, you know, 30, 35 minutes every day. The bus is no longer coming down to get you, etc. And so the culture is being cut off from being able to repopulate.
So that makes what you've written about all the more important, just as a preservation document. But do you also see that what is being Cajun is changing in people's minds, or is it dissipating? Is it continuing but change, or is it?
It depends who
literally
you
going
speak
away?
to. I think for people who are Cajun, it's not changing. I think that there is still like an identity. I think that there is still nostalgia. I think that for other people who aren't Cajun, I think that we're very young culture. We're only like 300 something years old. I think that there's been so much misinformation about Cajun for people who are not Cajun or not from South Louisiana or didn't grow up in it and so don't get it. And so that sort of identity has been sort of marred for so long that I think that that is why writing the books is so important. And I think one of the main reasons of writing the book is not only to put like these women who I think are just these incredible pillars of this traditional culture, like to sort of put them into print to like save them, but also to let the world know that this is a sophisticated culture. This is not the culture that's been ridiculed and used in all these, horrific ways. We have all these like recordings of my grandmother speaking, and there was a moment where I wanted to try to put it into historical archives because it's all this incredible history. And my mother would not let me do it because she didn't want it to get out into the world and her mother's voice be used in like a GIF or, in a ridiculing way. And so, when you're at that point, when your culture's been ridiculed so much, it's the identity is, I think, for Cajuns and the feeling. Same way with, if we think about like a refugee from Afghanistan who's now, in the United States, it's like when that person cooks their food from their hometown, they're going to feel something and create something so grand for their family. It is an unexplainable feeling and moment whenever you can create home. Same thing when we are in like evacuation from hurricanes. We're just like Cajuns in exile, We're just like cooking. We've brought all the food from our freezer, everything we could bring, and we're eating the same way we eat. We're playing Pedro. We're doing the same things that we do, just in another place. So I think you can take environment away from people, you can take geography away from people, but you can't take that sort of innate thing about a person from how they grew up.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the seasons. Explain to me how you define seasons. Obviously, there are more chapters, seasons, than there are traditional winter, summer, spring, and fall kind of thing.
So I made the mistake of reading some of my Amazon reviews. I never read reviews, but I was like, well, it's a new book, let's just see. Because I have like an Amazon author page, and there's a lot of people that are not very happy at how I organized this book, because they wanted it to be like soups, salads, entrees, things like that. And for me, the book was, I think in the first book, it was very much like, this is Cajun, this is what it's like to be in a fishing village, this is what it was like to grow up. And I think for this book, it's more like, this is who we are, And for me, it was taking a year of being in South Louisiana and thinking about that for years. It's not like I spent 1 year and was like, this is what it feels like. No, this is like my whole lifetime of living in South Louisiana and thinking about how it feels for a year. And so like, obviously me and my editor went back and forth how to organize it. How do you start the year? Do you actually start in January? Like that wasn't our intention at first. I actually wanted to start in April because it's spring. But we started at the beginning of the year, so we started with Epiphany, and that's like abundance, so it's like Mardi Gras. That's like just an intense time for anyone in South Louisiana. Then after Mardi Gras, we go into Lent. That's very Catholic. There's like, even if you're not Catholic, after you've survived Mardi Gras, there's a bit of simplicity you sort of weave into your life.
Recovery.
Whether it's dry April or whatever, you're just like, okay, that was a lot. And then from there, you go into the summer months. So you go into warmth, and then you go into grace. Grace is this time we're at right now, where it's November 2nd, and we still have some storms maybe, And so it takes a little bit of grace to sort of get through this time where it's still way too hot and we're sort of trying to crawl out of summer, and you just can't believe how could it still be a term of summer. And then from there we move to traditions, which is, we start in October, November, we start just like, there's a festival every week, and there's boucheries, and there's all these different things that feel so festive. And then we go into love, which is the holidays and sort of the bittersweetness of the holidays. And then we end in resilience, where I use sort of an onion as a metaphor for life. And what it kind of takes to grow up in South Louisiana, and the resilience you have to have, and the resilience of Cajun people throughout the years, and then just like an overarching worldly view as resilience living anywhere. I mean, obviously we're not the only people with problems, so there's like a resilience to life that is anywhere you are in this world.
So clearly you've told a story as opposed to written the traditional cookbook where everything is divided in the way that your detractors are expecting. So what do we learn from this book, and how did you decide what recipes would be included in the various seasons that support that statement that you're making?
Well, I'm always writing about life, love, and happiness, and when people ask me, are you a chef or an author, I always say I'm a curator. So I'm a curator of things I love. I always say the restaurants and the books are like incidental to like the story. They're like byproducts. They're like byproducts of the things that I love, whether it's like design or food or stories or writing, all of these things. I think that if you read it from start to finish, you are going to, I hope that you're going to see what I was trying to accomplish when I talk about life. I give you a little bit of fun, I give you a little bit of birth, I give you a little bit of death, and then I give you a little bit of a sort of, I wrap it up in a way that you're not wrapping it up. And that's sort of what life is sort of about. And then if you allow yourself to go through the thematic chapters, you'll see things that, recipes that sort of fit in that. I mean, obviously with king cake recipe, I very specifically did not put the king cake recipe in the first book because I knew that that's what the press would latch onto. They'd be like, king cake, Mardi Gras, let's only talk about that. And I wanted to make sure that the press or the media latched onto fishing village and hardworking people, and this is, what it's about. And then, simplicity, you'll see these stripped down recipes, that, mirror what simplicity is all about. Warmth, obviously, a little bit more stripped down, but the time in our life where we only want to eat shrimp and watermelon, it's like, it's hot, I don't want to eat anything, it's too hot. Although we still eat gumbo once a week. So I'm hoping that the recipes sort of are in line with the themes. And, in love, I have a fried turkey. I don't suggest anybody fry turkey, but but I put that recipe in there because we always fried turkeys growing up. And I just thought after I grew up, I looked back and was like, oh my God, like all of these men are drinking beer. These men never cooked ever a day in their life. They're drinking beer. They're around a gigantic cauldron of boiling oil. There's kids running around, there's dogs running around. Like, how are we still alive? Like, how does everybody have their fingers? And so, some of it is just for good humor, although fried turkey is delicious. And so I hope that you will, that people, when they read it, will, feel the themes through the recipes also.
So when you're developing the recipes, how do you do that? Do you expect that everyone will actually cook from it? And how do you explain everything to people?
So, I guess the number is that when people get a cookbook, they normally cook 1 to 3 recipes out of it, and that's it, And so, and you can't choose what recipe they're going to choose, The recipes are tested so much. They're tested once by my friend who's a professional chef, and then they're tested again by a home chef. And we do not put them in the book unless they work. And we test them. My Aunt Churchill, who worked with me intimately on the book, she cooks in a La Crusade. I cook in a Magnum Light. Our other recipe tester cooks in another pot. You know, we cook on 3 different stoves. We realized that our recipe tester had too small of a pot. I was like, send me a picture of your pot. She sent me a picture and I was like, oh, I'll do. We need to get you another pot. So we got a bigger pot, you know.
But does that also mean that you make sure to put into the recipe?
Absolutely. We tell you, you need some surface space. In the beginning, I say, like, you know, you need some surface space. Like, I literally cook in basically 2 pots in my house, my cast iron skillet and my Magnum, you know, which is all pitted and probably poisoning me out there. And so we explain that, and we try to walk you through the recipe as best as possible. And then we try to make you also understand that, like, if you're cooking the jambalaya, it is the hardest recipe in the book. We'll tell you, like, this is the hardest recipe in the book, you know, so that people know that it's okay to fail and then to try again. Because there's just some recipes that are, you have to make judgment calls, and even the most, you know, skilled person sometimes doesn't make the right judgment call, you know.
So when you cook, do you weigh everything? Do you make sure that you make it the same way every time, the way a recipe?
Personally?
Yes.
No, never. In fact, sometimes when I cook, I have to I'll go get the first cookbook and just look at the increments I put in it. Just I've kind of writing, this is gonna sound crazy, but kind of writing the first book made me dumber, you know, because I had to cook exactly, and I had never cooked really from a recipe before, and so I cooked through a lot of Marcella Hazan's recipes, because I was like, okay, I gotta see how people I respect and love do it. And so her recipes are incredible. They're really good. She's 1 cup of chopped onions, you know, a 1/4 cup of, you know, carrots to make her bolognese. And so I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. You cannot put 1 onion. I got in fights with my editor about this so much. An onion is many different sizes, you know, and so you have to weigh it for people. You have to put these increments in. Because you want people to succeed and be successful. I don't want there to be any smoke and mirrors. I'm not holding anything back. We try to explain it as much as possible. There are some things that are really hard to write, and we did our best, whenever you are browning onions, whenever you are cooking onions and caramelizing onions, there's a point when the onions start to stick in the pan, and that's good. Let it stick for a little while, and then you scrape it up, you know, and then you may deglaze with a drop of water, and then you let it stick again. And those are the kind of things that are hard, because that's the part when a home cook is gonna start burning things, or did it let it stick too much, you know. And so we do our best. I mean, I had Anne Churchill, we did so many pots of onions where we looked at what time did it start sticking, how long did we like it to stick, you know, then when did we scrape it, and then then it's kind of repeat. Those are the things we really, really care about, and we try to think of where somebody is going to go wrong. And then we give it to someone else who's not a professional cook, and they're a home cook, and then we let them go wrong many places, and then we try to correct, and then we put it out in the world and see how it goes.
I always find it annoying when you have to measure a cup of onions, because you might have a small onion and then you need to cut a piece out of another onion in order to make it up to a cup.
Yes.
And then then you have this used onion.
Yes.
And so I always try to
More onion's never gonna make it bad. In the end, when we were fighting about onion size with my editor, I was like, if they put more onions, it's gonna be delicious.
It's gonna be okay.
If they put not as much onions, it's still gonna be delicious. You know, it's gonna be okay.
I'm a big fan of not having to measure those things.
Yeah.
2 stalks of celery or whatever.
1 big onion gives you almost 4 cups of chocolate.
Yeah,
So,
it's a lot.
just so you know.
So, what do you do if you're from Minnesota and you're reading this book, and this book inspires you and says, I really want to cook from this book? but so many of the fresh ingredients are not. How do you deal with that?
Well, we have a resource section in this book, and I actually know a lot of people in Minnesota that do cook from this book. But in the resource section, you can go to annamariaseafood.com, and you can get the same shrimp that I use, and you can get it overnighted to you, and you can get gumbo shrimp peeled in a 1 pound package, which is still like, even now, even though I live in, South Louisiana and my cousins are shrimpers, we go to the farmer's market every Sunday and we'll buy it, because we don't have a lot of freezer space. We don't have a chest freezer like my mom has growing up with a whole bunch of milk containers of shrimp in it. And so because of technology now, you can go and you can get the same ingredients that I am using. So your gumbo is going to be just as delicious. And then other than like seafood, which you can purchase, it's basically just onions, bell pepper, celery, parsley, and green onions. And so that you can get at any grocery store.
And so if you're making a roux, do you think it matters what flour you use?
I don't. I think that using like something really nice would be, it's kind of like cooking with your really good olive oil, you
Mm-hmm.
don't heat up your really good olive oil. I think that you use just like whatever flour you have, not like self-rising. That would be interesting.
That would be, yes. So tell me then how you also balance what's in the cookbook so that even if it's not organized in a way that gives you vegetables, salads, seafood, meats, whatever, you still have a cookbook that kind of covers all of that.
Yeah, well, originally I wanted to write a menu book because that's what my life is, making menus all the time for people. And menu books don't sell currently, so I couldn't write a menu book. And so each chapter has sort of like an appetizer, soup, entree, dessert situation, and that is how it's organized, in the book. And so you can go into Abundance and pull together a menu, like a 4-course menu from that section, which correlates in the time that you were in. And so, no, it's not a menu book, but each chapter is created that way. So the love chapter gives you everything for a Christmas dinner, if you want to make it, or a Thanksgiving dinner, or a nice Sunday dinner. And also we have an index. And I know like the guy on Amazon was very unhappy about having to go to the index, but for me, and I have a pretty large cookbook collection, if I want inspiration, I pick up my favorite cookbook and I go straight to the index, whether it's like chicken, and I'm trying to come up with something different with chicken, even though I'm obviously gonna make the same thing. But still, I'll go through the index and I look. I never go to the table of contents. And so I think it's okay.
Yeah, well, everybody is going to approach a cookbook in a different way. So if you had to say, a Mosquito Supper Club book did this and the Bayou book did that, how would you make those distinctions?
Mosquito Supper Club was very intent on only putting the food that I grew up eating. So it had to be on my mom's table. And maybe 2% of things weren't on my mom's table, but they were so important to me, like strawberry pie. My mom didn't make a lot. My mom made bougie pie. My nanny made pecan pie, and so each sister had a certain thing. But I loved strawberry pie. I served it so much at the restaurant, I wanted to put it in there. But it was very much trying to say, I am from Chauvin, Louisiana. My parents grew up in Cookbook, Louisiana. This is what we ate. This is Cajun to me. And this book is Cajun food. This is who we are. This is how we feel at a certain time of the year. This is how we mark the days that then become months, that then become years. But some of the recipes in here this is the ingredients that are available to us at this time of the year, and this is what we do with them. And I am a Cajun woman. I am from Chauvin, Louisiana, but I have evolved as a chef. And this is how I use this ingredient as a woman who has evolved that owns a restaurant. So pickled shrimp. Pickled shrimp is very low country. The pickled shrimp that we eat is, actually, you'll appreciate this, it's basically Sicilian, I call it, It's like you can get like Sicilian sashimi and whatever, but So like Susan Spicer has this really beautiful pickled shrimp, but it's like a Sicilian. It's just like this olive oil, capers, red onion situation. Amazing. Those ingredients like can't get any better. But anyway, we can take our ingredients that we're gonna have anyway, like shrimp, and we can use them in different ways. Like right now we have a pickled shrimp that's like 3 different citruses because we're in citrus season, and we put Meyer pots in them and different things like that. So we can take these ingredients and we can evolve them to satisfy our creative appetite, and then we can share them with you, because people who come to the restaurant will be like, is this recipe in the book? And then we're like, okay, yes. So I give everything away, everything. And so, yeah.
So how has the restaurant evolved?
Oh God, restaurants evolved so much. I was trying to think of like the word I used in the pandemic, and I guess it is pivot, which is really hard. I mean, one of the good things about being a very small restaurant is that you can ebb and flow, and you can contract and expand, and you can deal with hurricanes, and you can deal with pandemics because you are small, and you can sort of shapeshift. But we've certainly grown. I mean, in the beginning I served 24 people, and that was it, a night, just 24 people. And then we always served communally, and it was always just a traditional Cajun meal, and felt way more like you were like in somebody's home. And then during the pandemic, we could not serve communally anymore, and so we had to start doing satellite tables. And then when we could start serving more people, the satellite tables is still what people preferred, because they had been distanced. And so we sort of stuck with that for a while until we felt like people would be okay sitting together at a table. And when we did that, I remember the first night we had a communal night. Brett Anderson was there that night, and it was such a fun night because people were just so excited to sit together. And it was just this crazy environment, and there was champagne, and there was noise, and there was huzzah. It was just a crazy night because people had been distanced for so long that they were just so excited to sit at a table together with strangers, and so that was pretty exciting. And so then we do a little bit of you can come and sit communally, and you can come and sit at a table, a two-top, and we have a bar where you can just come and have a drink and get a bowl of gumbo. But we went basically from serving. In the beginning, I served 24 people a night, and like this weekend, we have 70 people in a night. So it's runs way more like a traditional restaurant, but we still have communal tables and a Cajun supper tasting. And I'm very excited about the November menu because it is so traditional. I always taste everything, and I help develop what we're going to put on the menus. But I was tasting what we're going to serve in November as our entree, which is going to be crab jambalaya and white beans. I had it in front of me yesterday, and I was like, there's no one serving something so traditional in restaurants in Louisiana as this meal right here. I mean, I've never had a good jambalaya in a restaurant in New Orleans. And so I'm pretty proud of our team that we're able to serve this dish. It's scary to put it out. It's scary to put jambalaya out. It's so achingly simple. Are people going to get it? But then I have to move past that and say, it doesn't matter if they get it or not. I'm here to serve traditional food, to put the food that's on home tables and put it in a restaurant setting. And if you don't like the jambalaya, I really don't care. And white beans. If you think you paid too much money for white beans, it's okay, go somewhere else. I am trying to give you what I consider to be like one of my favorite meals: jambalaya, white beans, and like fried boulettes, which is what we're serving as our entree. After you get my grandmother's oyster soup,
So do you sell your cookbooks after
I do sell them in the restaurant, yeah, and a lot of people add them on to their reservation, and they're signed, and so that's a really lovely thing to have at the restaurant. But it's better to buy it at a bookstore.
Why? Just to support bookstores?
To support bookstores, and for an author, it's always better if it's bought at a bookstore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you said you haven't read your reviews. How many reviews do you have?
I don't know. I never read reviews. I don't read restaurant reviews. I don't read book reviews. I'm just like, very Georgia O'Keeffe in that, where like, good information comes in and out, and that's how you stay free. You can't let any of that bother you at all.
And
So taste is relative. You have to like really understand that when you put yourself out there as a cook or a writer or an artist in any way.
So how do you learn to make it better? Especially, I think you can say, I tasted this, I should add this next time, or do this or that. But do you think that the people who eat it also have some input into what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, whenever I tried the jambalaya and the white beans, and we do this every year, but I go back and try to make sure we're in the same place. But whenever I tried it, I had my general manager sit down, my chef sit down, a couple other people at the restaurant sit down, and I said, I think the white beans need more salt. I think the jambalaya needs more salt and hot sauce. It needs hot sauce, it needs acid to sort of combat this insane, I call it sexy jambalaya, because we make our crab butter and then we cook all the onions down in crab butter, and so it's so intense. And then we all try it together and we make a decision, what is the balance between 5 of us, because, I can't handle the spice level of some people. So we try to find this balance, and then once we put it in front of you, you can make a decision to put more salt or more hot sauce, or you can make the decision that you can push it away from you as afterwards, so which happens. So, or you can be the person that tells me that this is not gumbo, and I say you can call my grandmother, but she's not with us anymore.
So do you think that I know that when you are finished with the book and you turn it in, that like, okay. And so does that make you start thinking of something new? Or does that,
of course.
I mean, perhaps after a period of, okay, I don't want to do this. But then when that's over,
I have a really hard time with that period. Immediately I'm like, let's do another one. I think, the funny thing is you say this and you've written books so you understand, when is it actually done? Because you turn it in and it comes back, and you turn it in and it comes back and back and forth and back and forth, till at one point it's gone to print and you're like, okay, whatever mistakes, whatever has happened, it is gone to print now.
Right.
There's nothing I can do about it. And that is kind of when you celebrate. Then of course the day it gets pubbed, the day you get your booking held in the hand, and the day it gets pubbed. But I'm a project person, and so I'm always trying to think of what is going to creatively fill my needs, and what do I want to explore next. And so the next thing I want to explore, I already have an idea for, I already have a proposal out, and it's just trying to figure out how am I going to go about putting it together.
So do you think you'll ever do something that isn't a cookbook?
Yes, I hope so. Cookbooks are really hard and insane things to do. There's art direction. You have to be the art director. You have to be the technical writer. You're writing the stories. It's really difficult. I hope that I can write a book just of stories one day. That would be really fun for me. I think I'd really enjoy that. But again, I do think that I have a great team of people that knows how to put recipes together that we think will work for home cooks. And so if I explore in another genre, I think that being able to put that out is still very important. We all know that there are cookbooks that do not work. There are beautiful, beautiful coffee table books that are just so incredible to look at, and then you look at the recipe and you go, oh no, this is not going to work. And so I think that putting things out for people that we know will work is, I think, a really important thing.
So this book is beautifully styled. So talk a little bit about because it really evokes certain things. It's just really gorgeous. How was that accomplished? How much was yours and how much was the idea of others?
Yes, so everything is mine. Every single picture is, I always say that each picture in the book takes 2 hours to take the picture. Every single one. And so you can multiply that by how many pictures are in the book. And maybe one of them I didn't have my hands in because I was in the fetal position or something. But every single one of them is how I want it to be. And it takes 2 hours to make something look like how it would feel at home. And with this book, I always say it is sort of like like a dreamscape, because we all know that when you sit down to eat and enjoy something, your table does not have to look beautiful. When it looks its best, it's probably you've done too much. You're so tired that you're probably not going to even be able to enjoy it, you know, like Christmas times or like big parties or things like that. And so we made the book look like how it would feel in a dream of how you wanted it to feel, how beautiful, how celebratory. This is my favorite picture in the book. I'm lighting the candle. Then he takes the picture. It's not supposed to be like this, but we see this picture and we go, that's the shot. Although we spend 45 minutes taking more pictures. And then we go back to that shot because it's so organic. It's so organic, you know. It's that feeling when you light a candle at your home table. And like, I'm a big candle lighter, you know, so there's lots of candles in here, and they made lots of fun of me on set, but I'm like, I'm always lighting candles at my house. You know, I am a liability to my household. There are candles lit all over the place. And so it's difficult. It's difficult to put these things together. It's difficult to choose where you're going to shoot and what you're going to show. But it's fun in the end. And you let go. Sometimes you're not happy with a shot and you let go. You say, and then you talk to someone and they go, this is my favorite. So whatever, you know. Yeah. It just is what it is. Taste is relative. So, but I wanted to feel warm and I wanted to feel homey. And I wanted to feel very South Louisiana, and I kind of wanted to feel like if my mother had time, if she didn't have 6 children, like what table would she have made for us? You know, like if she had time to like put all these plates out and napkins, because, you know, she was quite creative in that way, but she just didn't have time. So you get the time and you get to like recreate these sort of like moments and memories.
I also like pictures in books of the aftermath, where things are half eaten or almost, you know, scraped plate kind of thing.
Yes.
Or stacks of dirty dishes.
Yes. And in that case, like for the fish cheeks, I started eating them because they were so delicious. And then Denny took a picture, and that's the picture that ends up in the book. He's like, stop eating it. I'm like, I'm starving. It's so delicious. And, you know, and so that winds up in the book.
Yeah. So did we cover everything? Is there something special that you want to say? Because I'm about to open it up to...
No, I'd rather answer your questions.
Okay. So, yes.
About crawfish, because I would love to continue cooking the recipes of my grandmother's, but I don't live in Louisiana. And I find that it's hard to see and it's expensive. And there are years when you can't find it at all. But for better or for worse, it's so associated with Cajun cuisine. I think it's a cover of the book. So, what is the future of crawfish and what will
I think the future of crawfish is great. We are gonna always, with anything, bread, wheat, anything, have good years and bad years, and that's okay, you know. Crawfish is expensive, but it's one of our best permacultures of rice and crawfish. It's really, I think, one of the best permaculture examples in our country of what we can do. And I think that unfortunately, if you live and your cousin or your dad is a crawfish fisherman and you can buy sacks of crawfish right there and boil it and then save your leftovers to make these dishes, then it's not going to be expensive. But when you're anywhere else in the country and you don't have that first degree, it's going to be expensive. And that is like the reality of this food going forward. And when you buy your frozen crawfish tails, buy them from a good source. And just because they're called boudreaux does not mean they're not from China. And so you really have to do your research. Just because it says like domestic doesn't mean it's not a domestic processing company that has got it from China. And look, when I was in Australia, I did use Chinese crawfish because I was in Australia, you know, and I did go to Chinatown and get my okra or whatever. But there's a difference whenever we are here.
Yes.
I understand you're from Terrebonne Parish.
I am.
I'm also a Terrebonne Parish native. I'm just curious, what part of Terrebonne are you from? I'm graduate of South Terrebonne I'm from Upper Little Caillou.
Yeah, I'm from Upper Little Caillou too, and I'm a graduate of South Terrebonne also.
Oh, very
Yeah, and all my siblings went to South Terrebonne also. Yeah,
Go get it.
yeah.
So those of you who raised your hand before and said that you already have the cookbook, have you cooked from it? So what is your favorite?
So I just got the cookbook, and as I was flipping through it, the 7-Up biscuits, I had to make those immediately.
Yes, and I'm going to tell everyone, like, the secret behind the 7-Up biscuits is that is a Pioneer baking mix recipe from forever ago. It was a Pioneer baking mix and 7-Up collaboration. And so if you go online, you can get the Pioneer baking mix recipe and make it. If you get Pioneer baking mix, which my mother does, and it's going to taste better than mine. But I made that recipe over 30 times to make it with the ingredients that I have in my house. I don't have Pioneer baking mix. I don't have yellow cake mix, although we all know yellow cake mix is incredible. Duncan Hines yellow cake mix. But I think it's about trying to use the ingredients you have in your home. But I hope that they came out for you. Whenever you're making them, they're kind of crazy. You're like, this can't be a biscuit. But my mom makes these all the time, and they're just our favorite.
And so are they going to be your go-to biscuit recipe?
No, absolutely. So I have a wheat allergy, so I made them from scratch with gluten-free
Nice.
flour, and they came out wonderful.
Oh my God, you should send me that recipe because I tried to make gluten-free pancakes the other day, and
No,
We had
side of my family loves the gato ananas. Like, I would normally buy them around this time of year, but I can never eat them, so I'm so excited that you put the recipe in that book, so I can try to make some
Yeah.
that I would eat for Thanksgiving. So yeah, that's
yes, yeah.
I'm excited about that.
That's great. Anybody else has cooked from it yet? No. Other people had their hands up as already having the cookbook. Anybody look through it and yes? And so are you,
I read it more like a novel.
Okay.
Been cooked from it yet. It was gifted to me. So,
And that's what I want. I want people to read it from front to back.
yeah.
My mom hasn't finished it, so if you didn't finish it, it's okay. I gave her till November 1st, and she still hasn't.
she
So,
hasn't? Okay.
Even though she's probably the first person in Louisiana to get a copy. So,
Okay. Okay, so please, I'm going to keep asking questions, but in case you have a question, just raise your hand so that we can make sure that we talk to, oh, sorry, yes.
It's so good to see the culture coming back and people like you trying to take the fish and pass down. I have a fan who does the language, the French language. She was on PBS. She's trying to learn the language.
Yeah, there's so many aspects of the culture. I mean, it's a complete culture. It's not just one thing.
yes.
So, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you're welcome. I'm trying.
I personally think that one of the reasons why the culture got sort of blurred is because of the World's Fair of 1984.
Oh, really? I was there.
So there was a Louisiana pavilion, and in the pavilion, all kinds of people, and it was a food pavilion. So people from all over the state of Louisiana came and represented their regions or their cities with food. So you had this kind of jambalaya or that kind of jambalaya and different kinds of gumbos. You had Natchitoches meat pies. You had all kinds of things that you can imagine that would be in some kind of food hall that was representing the state of Louisiana. But the way it was organized was not by region, but by who needs a plug or who needs to be close to water or whatever. And so because of that, it was kind of no geography. There's really no organization that you think of if you were going to be a writer. And so the food writers and the travel writers who came to the World's Fair simply said, this is Cajun Creole food or Creole Cajun food. And they didn't know the difference. They didn't understand the geography. And so then they had to go back. They were in Louisiana for 3 days or whatever, and they had to go write 15 articles or whatever they had to do. And so if you look at magazines from that time, like Gourmet or Bon Appetit or any of those magazines, they talk about the World's Fair and they talk about Creole Cajun or Cajun Creole food. And I think it really blurred things because there was absolutely no understanding of the geography, the different resources, the idea of people who were very isolated for a long time or anything like that.
And then with media, it was represented by men, and so we had this whole wave of this is Cajun, this is how, this is, you know, like blackened fish, like nobody ever blackened a fish down the bayou. You know, but like, and so like there was this whole media thing, and then so you kind of like, and you know, women also have been in the background of everything for so long, and so you're sort of like clawing at the truth to have it surface. So that's what we're trying to do, is correct a lot of misinformation on history. So.
And I think the ideas of Cajun French being its own thing as opposed to like some kind of bad French or whatever is something also that was lost. So it's good that your sister, you said, is your cousin, is working with the language, because I think that's really important also. Anybody else have any kinds of questions, anything else that they would like to talk about? Because I have many more questions. I just don't want to, I don't want to stop you.
I think we're almost running out of time.
Yeah,
too.
I think we are too. So, let's see.
I will tell
Yeah,
you
we have
that
6 minutes.
when the New York Times did an article about me, and everyone asked this question, like, what is Cajun? And so when the writer for the New York Times came to my mother's house in Chauvin, Louisiana, and this was like post Ida, I took him to my mom's laundry room and I opened the chest freezer and I said, this is Cajun. Like, this is it. Like, you go to anybody's house down the bayou, they have a chest freezer and they are ready to cook food for the next 4 months if they need to. And that's why we are very resilient in hurricanes, because we can feed ourselves. We know how to put food away. And not just any food, like the very best, you know, the fish that my dad cooked. And then I also tell people, it's like, you know, it's sitting at my mother's house at like her table and her making me food. And while I'm eating that food, us talking about what we're gonna eat for lunch. And then like while we're doing that, like my Aunt Arlene walks in with like a crock pot of ducks, you know, and plugs it in and says, this is for your dad, you know, for when he comes back from fishing. And, you know, my dad coming back from fishing and, you know, filleting all this fish and putting it in a silver bowl with ice in the fridge. And then like my Chrissy walking over and not even saying anything, coming in the house, opening the refrigerator, taking some fish. This is all in one day. Going back to her house, and then like at the end of the day before I leave, my Uncle Gordon coming over with a bucket of crabs, and him and my dad sitting down, you know, and eating those crabs. And that is what like a daily day is there, you know. My dad's retired, him and my Uncle Gordon fish almost every single day. They feed everybody in the street. And that kind of communion, that kind of like community, that kind of feeding each other, you know, just doesn't exist in those places anymore. And so those are the little things you hope you can hold on to. You know, being in this place right now, I called so many of these places when they changed the redfish and the trout levels this last year. You can catch less trout and less redfish now. And while I do believe in the importance of sustainability in the fishing industry, I tried to get the politicians to grandfather in seniors who have been fishing their whole life on these bayous. I tried to get them to grandfather anybody in who was a senior citizen, so they could still, you know, they're putting gas in their boats and they're going out, and so they could still catch what was the limit before, which was 5 redfish, you know. So that didn't happen, but you know, it would have been nice,
Yeah.
because they are still feeding, you know, families. So anyway.
So thank you all so much. And here, let me show you the book again. I'll do the showing.
Yes.
This is Bayou, and Bayou Feasting Through the Seasons of a Cajun Life by Melissa Martin. Thank you so
guys.
much.
Thanks for coming.
Mhm.